Okay.
Hey everyone, it's Crystal from Sober Onions podcast. I'm super excited. I know I say that every time, but I actually am. This has been quite a journey starting this podcast and learning so much about myself and other people. And I'm just really grateful. I want to say thank you to everyone that has been listening and sending me messages saying that it is making a difference in their life. And I really appreciate that. I just wanted to start out. I have my friend Kate here today. Say hi, Kate.
Hi.
Hi, she is in
Thanks for having
Switzerland.
me.
You're welcome. I'm very, very honored to have you. So it's been a couple weeks since I've done a podcast, and for everyone that has been listening, has been kind of following what's been going on in my life. And I've had a little bit of court trouble, and I've had somewhat of a tumultuous relationship with my children. I had talked to my two daughters. My youngest I haven't talked to in almost about 2.5 years. This will be the third Christmas, unfortunately, that I have not talked to my youngest daughter, and that is very difficult for me and very hard during these times of me being sober. My oldest daughter went 10 months talking to her, and she just reached out, and we are talking now. And so we are building our relationship back up slowly, obviously, because there is a lot of hurt there from both sides. But I've worked so hard on really trying to own up on my alcoholism, and something I did not do for a very long time. I made a lot of excuses and just blamed everybody for my alcoholism. Okay, well, this is why I drink, this is why I drink, this is why I drink. And my kids really just got the brunt of it. And I've been praying a lot about with being a sober influencer now and having a platform on social media, which is so cool, because when we started this on episode 1, I had 600 followers, and that was just a couple months ago, and we're about to hit 2K, which is crazy. So very excited. If you're not following already, it's sober.onions on Instagram and sober onions on Facebook and Twitter and TikTok. But I'm not very good at Twitter. I don't know, not very good at it yet, and I'm not good at the TikTok. My oldest daughter said that my videos are terrible, but hey, whatever, I'm doing it. So but with my court case update, I am doing outpatient at my previous rehab, which is very difficult because it's kind of like a post-traumatic stress syndrome, revisiting rehab on the outside, because all the women are stuck inside, and I drive in and I drive out. And yesterday I was there because I had to fill out some paperwork for my court and my counselor, and I had to do an hour therapy session. And there was about 20 women that poured out. It was lunchtime, and they're looking at me like, who the heck are you? And I was sitting at the table and I was filling out this paperwork, and I was like, hey, I'm Crystal. And they're like, who are you? And I was like, oh, I was here at this rehab in May. I just hit 6 months, by the way. Yes, 6 months this
Awesome.
week. So that's awesome. Huge milestone. I'm taking my first chip tonight in my home group, so I'm super excited about that. But yeah, I said, I'm Crystal, and I was here in rehab in May and inpatient, and I hated it. I really, really did. And they're like, what are you doing here? And I said, well, to let you know, I just hit 6 months and I'm just doing some outpatient. And they were like, whoa. And my therapist actually walked out that I was with at my rehab, and she hadn't seen me since I got discharged. And she came up to me and she was crying, and I was like, why are you crying? And she said, oh my God, just nobody stays sober, because it's just so hard, and they watch people come in and out and in and out, and it's just so hard to stay sober in this world that we live in. It's everywhere. I mean, everywhere you go, and now it's the holidays, and there's in every grocery aisle, it's like, here, buy your bread and you get a bottle of Fireball for free. It's like, what? So it's really crazy. But I'm really excited to just be continuing. I haven't done a lot of FaceTime social media, and I've gotten a lot of people that have said, oh, you need to be more out there. And I just really feel like I am not ready for that, and it would be very fake. And I feel like I am not in that. Sobriety is super, super awesome right now. We kind of talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it sucks because I feel good besides my feet because I have severe neuropathy, which I had an EMG test on Wednesday, which I don't know if anybody's ever had an EMG test, but it's where they put needles in your feet and they shock your feet. And
Oh,
I was out of work for a week. It was awful. It was miserable. So if you're feeling any tingling in your arms or your feet, it's most likely from drinking too much. Because I know when I first started getting it, I thought it was because I was working too much. So it was not from working too much, it was from drinking too much. But because I was drinking so much, it numbed it. So I was continuing to damage my nerves and not knowing that I was doing so much harm to my body. And that's something I can't wait to talk to you about as well, because you are a physical fitness trainer and you help people through sobriety. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But other than that, everything has been going pretty good. I had my esthetician license in Florida and they do not accept it in California. So I actually just got accepted into an academy. So I'll be starting in December to get my license for esthetician here in California. So we'll see, kind of going back into that field. I used to own a day spa and it was called La Ligue Day Spa, which is crystal in French, because, I'm just so conceited. That was, everything was about me back then. So that's kind of the next journey that I'm doing. And with that being said, so we were talking about, I have a lot of things that people promote. When you get to a certain point, everybody starts saying, promote this, promote this. And honestly, with the cost of the podcast, you really do need to represent something that supports, the income of it. So everyone knows I'm doing the clean cause. Basically you just go to cleancause.com and you put in sober onions or sober onions one, whatever the thing is that month, but it gives back 50% to drugs and alcohol recovery. So I'm very passionate about that. And then also my daughter, because we've reconnected, which I'm very, very happy about. And, I suggested that she goes to an Al-Anon meeting and she didn't even know what Al-Anon was. And I explained to her that, there's other kids out there that have had alcoholic moms just like you, and you will have some support there. And so she's looking into it, and I really hope that she does an Al-Anon meeting and can get some support for herself, because she's 21 and there's issues she has that she doesn't even know. And it's just sad. I look at how much I've damaged my family, and now just even at 6 months, like 6 months is just not enough to repair 18 years of an addiction. But my daughter actually is full-time Arbonne at 21. She started when she was 18. And of course, I was her naysayer. And, I was like, oh, she's going to quit. Well, she didn't. And now she literally is full-time Arbonne. She is completely supported by the brand, and she is going to missionary school full-time in Orlando, which is awesome. It's called Jesus School. So it's just so nice to hear about her and just see that, okay, I wasn't such a crap parent, and that's, realizing that, yes, I had an addiction, but I'm still her mom and she loves me and she forgives me. So I think I'm going to join up with her, and we are going to come up with a detox program with some vitamins and supplements that can help people. Because I know when I got clean, I was a mess. My skin was a mess. I started breaking out all over my chest, and my shoulders were breaking out in acne, which I was like, why am I breaking out on my shoulders? Just detoxing from alcohol. My body needed that alcohol and it was not resetting right. So that's going to come out. And then last thing before we get ready in this interview, I'm super excited. And my mom, shout out to my mother, who basically was my sweatshop yesterday. We are coming out with a ton of merch. So we've got, because of the winter time, we've got beanies and scarves and all kinds of cool stuff. But sober onions, and then some of the proceeds to that are going to go to a charity. I have not decided which charity yet. It's actually I didn't realize how hard all this stuff was. You have to really get behind and choose. There's so many places that benefit any type of finances. So for me, I have to think about what I'm passionate about. And I'm definitely passionate about the women that are in rehab and the moms out there that are scared to go to rehab, because I was scared. I went through detox and it was very scary, and I didn't know. I was worried about what people would think about me. I was worried about losing friends. I was worried about losing family, having to start from zero, feeling unsuccessful, feeling like my worth was nothing. There's a lot of mental illness that comes with getting sober, and it's a difficult journey, and that's why we have to stick together. It really is important that we all stick together and encourage each other to keep going. So with that, lots of exciting stuff coming your way from Sober Onion. So with that said, thank you for listening to my giant long update. And with that, I can't wait to hear all about you, Kate. So Kate, you are in Switzerland, which is awesome. You are 650 days sober. Congratulations. Yes.
Thank you.
You are a mom of 3. So I'm excited to hear about that. You are a sober fitness coach, which you can find her at Sober Fitness with Kate on Instagram, and coming soon will be a website, soberfitnesswithkate.com. So look her up. But with that, I want to talk about you, Kate. Tell me a little bit about you, how you got sober. I know that you went to rehab, so I'm very curious about that. So go for it, girl.
Okay, so kind of in a nutshell, I met my husband. He's Swiss. I met him here in a bar when I was fleeing a really bad relationship, drugs, alcohol, you name it. And I was here on a whim, met him in a bar, tried to pick him up. And I've never seen a person leave a bar as fast as I saw him leave a bar. But this was right around when Facebook started. So we connected on Facebook and just sort of were like internet pen pals, right? And I had been trying to get healthy at the time. I was suffering from depression and just some trauma associated with this relationship, and had been going to therapy and sort of trying to get my life in order, and all the while talking to him, and we sort of connected again at a good point in my, let's say, mental health program. And yeah, just really hit it off again. We had met in New York. We'd gone out to dinner. He was here in the sorry, I said here in the US. Like sometimes I forget I'm not in the US, but he was in the US.
Yeah, you're far. You're far away.
Yeah. I'm from New Jersey originally. So yeah, sometimes I forget myself. Yeah, so he was in the US with his family, and we met for dinner and just really hit it off. And it was just timing is everything, you know. Timing, I think, is everything with sobriety. But in the case of our relationship, it worked out really well, that we were both single. I was in a good headspace, I guess. And then, after dating for about 18 months, transatlantic, we decided that we wanted to see if our relationship had some staying power. And so he ended up getting a job in the US with his company, and I moved to Wisconsin, and we got engaged, married, and had 2 of our 3 kids in 4 years. And then we moved to Poland with his job, and that's sort of where things with my drinking took a really bad turn. I had always used alcohol, the first time I drank was my first week in college, and it was 5 shots of vodka from a bottle because there were some jocks in my dorm room and I wanted them to leave, and I just told them to give me the vodka bottle. And if I asked, if I finish this, would you get out of this room? And they were like, yeah. So I finished it. And I was like, now get out of here. And that was the first time I ever drank. And I think that's just that those 5 shots were sort of a red flag. But anyway, like so I used alcohol to cope with anxiety in college. And again, when I got out of college and I worked in corporate sales, and you go on sales calls, there's sales meetings, there's always functions with other people, and I used alcohol to help with that because of my anxiety. And then, as I became a mother and I'm sort of disconnected from family and feeling lonely, and depression starts to creep in, my drinking starts to pick up. And then when we moved to Poland, and I had my third child in 3 years, basically. And I went through postpartum depression. Just my drinking use spiraled out of control.
Were you, I don't mean to cut you off, were you drinking while you were pregnant, or this was all in between the pregnancies?
No, it was, no, I wasn't actually. Like, those were some really peaceful months in my family where I wasn't drinking. I was pregnant again, right? It was just the time between the pregnancies, and then especially after my third child was born, and I was struggling with depression. And I was in the third largest city in Poland, but I didn't have access to English speaking mental health care, at least healthcare that could have helped me. Like, I could have found an English speaking therapist, but and I tried, but it just, the language barrier was pretty significant. And so I didn't get the healthcare that I needed. And it was just easier to walk down the block to get a bottle of vodka. And so my husband cut short his job assignment in Poland so we could get back to Switzerland. I think he just wanted to get out of there, out of the country. As my drinking progressed, the whole experience sort of left a bad taste in his mouth, if you will. And so we got back to Switzerland, and it was another country, no friends, no family. The alcohol just, every time I drank, I sort of sank deeper into depression and misery. And yeah, so the last time I drank was a 5-day vodka bender, and I don't remember how I got alcohol, how I managed to stay blacked out for 5 days, but I did. And then I woke up in the middle of the night, and it was like a lightning bolt hit me. And I just said, this has to change, and so I talked to my husband. I woke him up. He wasn't sleeping in the same room as me. We were in a really bad space with our relationship as a result of my drinking. So I went down to the spare room where he was, and I said, I need help. I can't do it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. And so we were able to find a treatment center for me here in Switzerland. And it was a German-speaking treatment center. So that was a real trip. I mean, my German was progressing, and I had taken lessons before I moved here, but I wasn't fluent enough to get medical care, but I went with it because I wanted to get sober. And I think that's really important for people to realize, is that sobriety, getting sober, it has to be something that comes from within you. No one's going to make you get sober, because you are the one that has to do the work. And if you're not committed to doing the work, you're not going to change your behavior.
Can you hear any of that?
No, I can't.
Okay, good. Okay. There's some pickup, and I just want to make sure. Excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So I just have some fun neighbors. I think if you've heard any of my other podcasts, I had some neighbors get into a fight as I was podcasting. So yeah, this is gonna be fun. My goal is to, make the podcasting big enough to where I could travel and have cool backgrounds behind me that are real, not, like a Zoom one.
Yeah, but no, this is totally fine.
So sorry about that. But I'm and actually, because I got interrupted by these people, I wanted to ask you. So you found a German rehab, and it was a treatment center, and was inpatient? How long was it for? And who was taking care of your kids? Excuse me.
Yeah, so I went to inpatient treatment for 6 weeks, and we had to utilize the Red Cross to help with the child care. My husband it's the same boss now today, but he was really lucky that he had a manager who was understanding of the situation. And so we utilized babysitters from the Red Cross. And we were fortunate that we could afford the care, because I can imagine for a lot of women, that it's just not possible for them to leave their children, one, for financial reasons, or two, just this idea that they're leaving their children to go get help for themselves. And I think I read once that, you know, women who suffer from alcohol misuse issues struggle with, like, their struggle lasts longer than men, because they just don't want to leave their families, or they feel like they can't abandon their kids for a certain amount of time. And, you know, I feel for these women, because I was able to get the help that I needed. In talking to you know, women in the US, what I recommend is, if you can't go to inpatient treatment, look for outpatient treatment. Look for
I know what you're talking.
It's IOP.
IOP,
intensive
yeah.
outpatient treatment. Look
Yeah,
for that.
I did that after I got out of rehab.
Yeah.
I did IOP.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you touched on that, because I know with listeners, and sometimes it's not just the listeners. Maybe the listener it doesn't have this problem, but everyone knows an alcoholic. So sometimes if we just share the information, and IOP or outpatient is great, because I do agree with you that when my kids were little, or if my kids were little, I would be like, no, I can't leave them. And how would I afford it? I do know that in the States, though, there is a little bit more financial help when it comes to helping with babysitters and stuff like that, if they're single moms. I think what the main thing, that the main number one reason in what I've read, is the guilt. The guilt of the mother is what keeps them from getting sober. They feel so guilty because, one, they would have to leave their kids. Two, people would know. They think people would know. And three, their fear they'd lose their kids. So they continue abusing their drug of choice, whether it be alcohol or drugs, and continuing to be a functional alcoholic, which is what I was for many years. You know, I had people that were shocked that I was an alcoholic. They were like, wait, didn't you have this huge successful business? Like, that's very confusing. So
drinking alcohol is such a prevalent part of mom culture these days. Mommy needs wine, give mommy vodka. Like, it's, you know,
and there's groups for it.
Precisely. When you see a mom cracking open some wine on a Sunday morning because it's a mimosa, like, oh, it's no big deal. And especially what you said, like, you know, if she's got a job and her kids are like dressed in clean clothes and there's food on the table, her drinking's not that big of a deal. You know, in my case, so my kids were 5, 3.5, and 2 when I went into treatment. And so it was a good age. Like, my younger ones don't really remember me being away. My older one does, and acknowledges it as a period of time when I was sick. But I could see, like, as if they were older at this age, you know, being in school, having homework, having gymnastics class and stuff, how hard it is to break away from that. And all I would say is that, look, you know, if you're going to treatment, it's a very short amount of time in the long run, the scheme of things.
It feels very long. Like, I felt like it was a lifetime.
Precisely.
But it long term. And like you said, when you were pregnant, you know, it was like, you know, this peaceful time for your family, you know, and that's what we don't realize, is the people around us are affected. And so we think we have our stuff together. And that's the delusion of the addiction, the chemical addiction of our drug of choice, which mine was alcohol. And we make excuses for it because everything around us looks good. And it's so hard to admit it, though. And I'm still struggling with that. You know, I'm big in AA. I love AA. It's not for everyone. Everyone has different avenues of getting sober. And that's why I do this podcast, because it blows my mind how everyone else gets sober, but we're doing the same thing, but everybody does it a different way. So it's super eclectic. Like, sobriety is so eclectic, and I love that. And so I just love listening to people's stories. But AA for me is what I do, and that's how I stay sober, and it works for me. But I think that when women are on the outside, look, when they haven't made that decision. And my point with AA is I'm very vocal, like, hi, I'm Crystal, I'm an alcoholic, right? And
Yep.
and that's very, you have to own that. And at some point I did. It took me a long time to do that. But when you're in that moment, you hate that word. You are constantly battling that word. It's like you against the word in your mind. You're like, am I an alcoholic? Am I Googling, am I an alcoholic? Am I, okay, let me control my drinking today. Okay, so I'm going to take care of the kids and do this, and then I'm going to drink this, but I'll be fine if I take a nap. And so it's like you're in this relationship with alcohol and nobody knows it, but they do. They do know. And you think they don't. And there's so many moms out there, and it's rampant. Like you said, it became okay. I was talking to my mom about this last night. She plays in a big tennis. She plays in a big tennis club. It's like her favorite thing to do is play tennis. And she said, she notices how much tennis drinkers drink, and they do. I used to run a tennis club. It was actually the job I got fired from.
I notice how much. I notice how much other people drink too. Like now that I'm sober and I've got all of my wits about me, I'm like looking around. Yeah, especially at like functions, weddings, and get-togethers. Like, you should be pouring that other glass.
Yeah, and so my mom is like, she's like, I know, I notice how much my friends are drinking, and they're drinking more. And she goes, and then I'll tell them about your podcast, and how you got sober. And then she's like, they'll say, wow, maybe I drink too much. Like maybe I'm drinking too much. When she shares with them, like, I was a successful person with a great family, great kids, and the damage was done internally. And so a lot of people can relate to that because, I wasn't arrested. I didn't get a DUI, but I could have. I was on my way. I felt it. I knew it was coming. It was the next thing coming. And so there's so many people out there that are like, And then when COVID happened, oh, well, now we just drink and post about it, And so, but my message, and this has been my message, besides the fact that my mess is now my message, is that the chemical of the drug of choice is what is going to backfire on everyone who is drinking right now excessively and not realizing it, because then it's becoming, I need it. And that's when I noticed I needed help, because I was waking up in the morning and drinking, and I didn't even know why. There wasn't even a reason. It was just, I could not function with my brain. It wasn't function with my day.
I would go through withdrawal, like so I wasn't drinking every day, but usually something would trigger me and I just didn't have an off button, right? So something would trigger me, I'd get alcohol, I'd drink all of the alcohol that I bought. And then the next day, as the alcohol is leaving my system, I'm withdrawing from it and I'm having like heart palpitations or sweats. And I just need a little sip of that alcohol to calm my central nervous system,
That's how I was sweating so much, and I would literally, people would start commenting on it, and I would say, oh my gosh, I'm 40, I'm menopausal, like whatever. Like I had an excuse for anything.
We brush it off. We make excuses for it.
It's so awesome.
Anything except admitting that you have a problem with it, right?
Yes. And I commend you. I really do, because you're an inspiration, not only to me. I am impressed. I mean, to be a mom of 3, to be traveling overseas, to be married, to have the support of your husband, to and now to be 650 days sober is just incredible. And just keep doing what you're doing, because obviously you attracted my attention, and I definitely was empowered by what you're doing. So I want to talk a little bit about you started so you got sober, and which it has changed your life, changed your family's life, and you got into a fitness industry where you promote fitness with sobriety. And I think it's really really great because we talked about earlier cross addiction, and
Yeah.
mine was ice cream. And I know it sounds funny, but I never had ice cream before, but I literally am so addicted to it. Like, I need that sugar. I'm dehydrated. My body craves what it used to get, which was in the alcohol. And
Your body wants that quick high.
yes,
Like,
and
right?
comfort, like it's comfort
Right.
food. Like, I just had my ice cream, I'm good to go, and I'm still struggling with it a little bit because I'll have like my triggers where I have a bad day and I'm like, whatever, ice cream. And my mom always says, I think I said this in a podcast before, like, ice cream doesn't hurt people, so but health wise,
That's true.
it's not good.
Ice cream never got into a car and killed a person. That's true.
Yeah, it's true. So, but with that said, I've gained some weight. I got sober, I've gained some weight, I'm eating more because, I'm not drinking. And you would think, people think, oh, well, you stop drinking and you lose a ton of weight. I didn't lose weight. I lost the swollenness.
Yeah.
My body was starting to swell. My wrists were swollen. My face was swollen. I mean, my sister basically told me when I got sober, she was in tears because she was like, you were unrecognizable. Like,
yeah, you should see
apparent.
the picture of me. You should, I didn't. Oh man, like sometimes I wish I had taken more like photographic evidence of my progression, because I would love to use myself as a marketing campaign for fitness and sobriety, right? Because you should have seen my face was puffy, and I had a massive belly. Like, I was just retaining so much water. I was
that's
puffy.
how I was. Yeah, so it's like you get sober, and I talked with Alex about this in one of the episodes, if you haven't listened to it, and we talked about what's next. Like, now what do we do? And so it's nice to be able to, for me, I started my podcast as an accountability. I'm doing my clean cause promotion. I am, doing my Arbonne and getting back into my esthetician stuff, trying to help people with their health on some level. And so I think people look out and go, okay, what do I do next? And how do I lose this little bit? So tell me how you got into that and why it's important to you, and what makes you want to reach out and help people, because in the beginning, obviously you're not getting paid. So what is it that motivates you to continue to help people on their sober journey in the fitness world?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, because you had mentioned earlier that you're 6 months sober, and it's not exactly like setting your world on fire, right? Like, yay. And I'm almost 2 years sober, and I have those days too, but one thing that helps me is just having like the awareness of how positively my life has changed since I stopped drinking. And for me, the first almost 9 months of sobriety was just about getting through each day without alcohol. Yes, I was exercising, and I was also going to therapy. And something I want to say for women struggling with feeling like they can't leave their kids to go to treatment, inpatient treatment, or even the intensive outpatient treatment. A lot of our addiction issues are related to trauma, things that have happened in our lives that propel us to use a substance to cope. And a lot of that stuff gets unpacked with a good therapist. And so I unpacked a lot of my childhood trauma and understood a lot more about my addiction and why I use alcohol, or why I used alcohol to cope a certain way. So that's really something that I think I wanted to mention, that, as an option to women. An hour a day, once a week, isn't a lot in the scheme of things. And so I think that's something that people should, consider. But anyway, with the fitness angle, so I basically spent 9 months just living without alcohol. I came home from rehab and had expected to do an outpatient program, but everything was closed here because of COVID. And so I just settled into a routine of nurturing my family. And if I felt triggered, the one thing I could do was exercise. We had an old stationary bike, and I just sat on that thing and I pedaled. Or I'd go outside with the kids and do yard work or run around with them, like stuff that I hadn't done with them, like stuff that I wasn't interested in doing with them before I stopped drinking, because my mind was fixated on alcohol, right?
Mhm.
If I wasn't drinking alcohol, I was thinking about getting alcohol. And if I had gotten alcohol, I had drank too much of it, so I was recovering from that, right? Like alcohol takes so much of your time from you. And so, yes, I was just for about 9 months, just kind of surviving without alcohol. And I couldn't go to therapy. I did a lot of my stuff over the phone. And so I was doing some crafting. But the thing that really helped with my moods was exercise. I just got off on being able to lift heavy weights or bike, I set a biking goal for myself, and I sort of got high on ticking off the numbers that I wanted to hit for a certain day. I mean, people talk about runners' highs, like this endorphin rush that runners get when they're racing, and there is something to be said for that. And so around like 9 months, I was sort of getting like salty with my sobriety, like, hey, I made it 9 months, big deal. And I connected with a group of burpee enthusiasts who were sober. And it was another way to test my body physically. And some of them had gotten into coaching. And I thought, well, geez, I'm fit. I understand fundamentally how macros work and how space strength training principles work. And I like to put together my own workouts. So maybe this is something I could get into. Yeah. And I went through a company called Nf3 Fitness because, again, with my language limitations, I couldn't do anything locally. And Nf3 Fitness is an organization that my husband and I follow, if you will. Their practice is like they want to make better humans. Building better humans is their motto, and it's not about training excessively every day. It's about training as a lifestyle for you to be a better human, a better spouse, a better employee, because you're fitter, healthier, etc. Okay. And so I did my training through them, and I just I could not get into the AA fellowship, but one thing that I love about AA is the idea of service. And so I thought sober fitness is a way for me to give back to people who were struggling, because all it took for me was connecting with the words of one person to believe that recovery was possible. Right. And so I like to, I just like to connect with people and talk about what I went through. And first of all, let them know that they're not alone. There's so many people struggling with substance misuse issues. A lot of people struggling, not even talking about it. And I think it's really great to see somebody who was like me and who's now 650 days alcohol free, and I'm in pretty good shape. I mean, I lost the baby weight and then some. I did a burpee mile over the summer.
Burpee mile, I'll have to look into that one. I don't know what a burpee mile is.
It worked out to be 1,300 burpees and broad jumps.
Holy mackerel! I would die like on one probably.
I've just, exercise before I got sober was about the aesthetics. I want to look good. It was never about feeling good. But since I got sober, I have just seen so strongly for me this connection between being physically strong and being mentally strong. And you know what, right now I kind of promote moving with intention. Like, get your body up, get outdoors, walk, you know, move with intention on a daily basis, and it's good for your mental health.
Definitely.
And yeah, I just like, it's so funny, like my husband was the fitness person in our household, and since I got sober, the roles have changed a little bit, and I like to talk to people who are I think struggling in their
yeah, I think what you're doing is really cool. And, there's so many benefits to exercise. We hear it every day. I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, endorphins, it's, you get more stamina, you're healthy, your heart. I mean, there's sexual benefits to it. There's mental benefits. There's nothing negative about working out. So,
Right.
and I think the hardest part for me, and I know I relate to a lot of people, is when we think of fitness, we think of what the world wants us to look like, and what Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all of that.
Right.
When the fitness person is coming on with their cutesy little sports bra that's that they're promoting, and and
that's
you're just
one way to get like a million followers. That's one way to get a million followers on Instagram, is post a bunch of pictures of you in skimpy running shorts and a sports bra.
Right. Well, I love the one girl on Instagram that makes fun of she's heavier, and she makes fun of all the videos, and it's kind of sad because I was watching her, and then she became really famous and got really skinny, and I'm bummed, not that the her being heavy was healthy, but I get that with me as well. You have to find a fine balance when you decide to use a social media platform as your way of promoting your business. There is a fine balance of how do you say it, like what you promote. You have to be very careful if you're really genuine. And for me, I am genuine, but there is expenses. So I have that fine line of what I promote, what I don't promote, and to support the business, but be genuine. Because if you really want to help people, like, I don't feel like me and, a sports bra is promoting sobriety. And there's a lot of people out there, and they have a lot of followers, and I get that, but that's not the following I guess I'm looking for. I'm looking for people who want to relate to me and you, who had a hard time with whatever their drug of choice was, and who need that extra little help on a bad day. Maybe they're just driving down the road and they need something to listen to, and they need to hear two people saying, it was hard, but we did it. We did it. That's the message. The message is that we did it, and we're doing it, and how we're doing it is what we want to pass on. And so there's boundaries there. But I have enjoyed interviewing you so much. I'm so excited and looking forward to our continued friendship. I just want to reach out to everybody now and just let you know again, this is Kate. She's in Switzerland, originally from the United States, 650 days sober. And you can find her on Sober Fitness with Kate on social platforms, as well as soberfitnesskate.com. And if you're loving the podcast, and we thank you so much I say we as in me, but thank you so much for listening and supporting the podcast. If you want to help with additional donations, you can go to soberonions.com and click donate or sponsor. And it is a PayPal link, paypal.com/soberonions. I want to do a little shout out to Sober Soaps. Sober Soaps is actually sponsoring Sober Onions annual Christmas holiday party. And so if you want to find some sober soaps and stay clean, you can go on social media and find Sober Soaps or sobersoaps.com to order yours now. And with that, I just want to say thank you to everybody. And this is Crystal with Sober Onions, peeling back the layers of sobriety. And remember, if I can do it, we can do it. Thank you so much, Kate. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank